It's raining heavily today in Morocco, which is a good thing. I believe that it's still hot on your side, Elias.
Yeah, here we haven't had rains this year. We've not been blessed. There's a joke going around that the government has stolen rain's money. because our governments are so corrupt, they steal almost everything. So there's a joke going around on social media that the government has stolen money and whoever is responsible should be brought to justice. We should have had heavy rains by now, but still nothing.
Well, they could. You'll never know what they are capable of.
Yeah, you never know.
I believe we have 18 attendees. I don't know if we are on air now.
You are on
Sorry,
air
what was
now.
that?
Oh, okay.
It is open for participants, so we just wait them to connect.
Okay. Super. Thank you.
Ali, how's Senegal?
Yeah, as most of African countries, yeah, we are coping with this pandemic. But from our side as a society, we still have some avenue to visit communities and to do some workshop, which is great.
Oh, I keep forgetting that I'm mute. Yeah, I mean, struggles all over. One struggle at a time. I see people writing in the chat room, but I don't see them as part of the participants. Why is that? Maybe someone can explain to me.
It's the participant writing on the chat.
Yeah, I see participants writing on the chat, but if I look at like on top here, I only see us and the group from the African Development Bank. So I'm trying to understand if they've joined, we just can see them, or maybe they're in the waiting room.
I can see that we have 26 participants.
Oh.
And yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And they can hear us?
They can hear us, they can see us. We are here.
That's great. That's great.
I wonder when are we going to start?
Okay, sorry, Sharon. I think we can get started now. Can we? That's good.
Yeah. Can the organizers tell us something if we can start?
Yeah. Can I just confirm with the organizers that we can start? We are seeing you. Okay, I see the comments. All right. Thank you. I think we can get started. Our session is being recorded, so I would like to say thank you everyone for joining. Your moderator / co-panelists. My name is Elias Jika. I'm working with the International Accountability Project based in Lilongwe, that's the capital city of Malawi. I can talk more about international accountability project as we go on. Our session will run for 90 minutes. We'll spend the first hour discussing the 3 topics we have arranged for this session. And then we'll spend the last 30 minutes opening the floor for comments and questions. So as we go on, if you happen to have comments, questions, please just drop them down in the chat box and we'll go through them together. Our session today is going to discuss 3 critical issues that we believe are very critical in facilitating community participation in development processes. The first one is tracking and monitoring of COVID-19 financing. The second one is right and access to information for project affected communities. And the third one is citizen engagement in development priorities. So we are a panel of 3, myself and my 2 colleagues. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll pass it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves as well. So like I mentioned, my name is Elias Jika. I am working with the International Accountability Project. IP is a human rights and environmental organization that advocates for community-led development. So we are working with communities worldwide to provide support communities that have been impacted by development projects. So we are working globally. Myself, coordinator for Africa. In Africa, I work with my colleague, John Mwewe, who's based in Uganda. Unfortunately, John was unable to join us today. I'll pass it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves as well. Maybe we can start with you, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ali Marisang. I'm based in Senegal. I'm the director and founder of Lumiere Synergie for Development. We are monitoring development finance operation in Senegal and West Africa, and especially the African Development Bank. We are part of a global coalition named the African Society Coalition on the African Development Bank, which has the ambition to monitor the African development at policy and operation and project level. So we are doing research on critical projects. We are doing training for communities, for society. We are helping communities that have been affected by development project to file complaint to independent complaint offices, and we are supporting throughout the process to create some space to make their voice heard and to seek remedy through interaction with bank, with project implementation, etc. So overall, our overall goal is to maximize the development benefit for community as well as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ari. Sharing.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you, Ali. And thank you to everyone who is attending our session today. I'm Shireen Talat, the co-director and one of the founders of the Arab Watch Regional Coalition. Arab Watch Regional Coalition is a coalition that monitoring the work of all the IFIs, the international financial institutions that operate in the MENA region. Also, our main goal is to have participatory, inclusive, and just development. And to achieve this, we working with our members and also the broader civil society actors, including local communities etc., to build their capacity to engage more in this development process and the policies and the projects that is implemented by the international financial institutions, also to help the affected people to raise their voice and needs up, filing complaints, etc. We working on empower civil society actor in its broader way again, um, to with the tools of monitoring and engaging around the MENA region, including of course the countries that already are in Africa, like Morocco, Egypt, and Tunisia. We operate in 7 countries around the region. We have more than 37 organizations, national and local organizations around the MENA region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shireen, and thank you, Ari. My colleagues have done a comprehensive introduction about the organizations and the work they're doing. In the interest of time, I will be talking more about IFP as we go on through our presentations and what we want to discuss today. But please note that this session is being recorded and it will be shared with all participants, as well as other materials that will be referenced as we go on today. So to start our session, I'm gonna go first and talk about probably one of the challenging issues for us as civil society in this year, which is COVID-19, and as civil society, also as groups that are working with communities in trying to monitor or track the financing of COVID-19 that is going to our government. So basically the COVID-19 tracker that I'm referring to, excuse me, I need to minimize Zoom. Okay, I'll manage. Yeah, the COVID-19 tracker that I'm referring to is tracking project level financing from 15 different government finance institutions. It's an interactive map basically that we are updating every week with new projects. Currently, as you can see, we have 891 projects with financing of more than 104 billion. So like I mentioned, this is tracking project level financing. So we might have seen in different press releases or media that banks are committing certain amounts, hundreds of millions, billions in financing, but the tracker here is monitoring project level financing. And all this data that the tracker has is coming from the Early Warning System initiative. So maybe I can just spend a few minutes to talk about the Early Warning System initiative, and then we'll get to the COVID-19 tracker. So the Early Warning System initiative primarily is an access to information initiative where our national governments and companies and communities are all involved in development processes, and they have their own priorities. But oftentimes we see that engagement is between the development banks and the national governments and companies, while communities are left out of the development processes. And basically, while development banks are financing many projects, right? We find that communities are not consulted, communities lack information on projects, engagement, complaint processes, and others. And so the area, oh, this is just a description, sorry, a picture that tries to show like sort of the barriers that communities are facing in accessing, information, which is key for them to participate in project processes. And we believe communities should be like in the forefront of decision making when it comes to to development, because they are the ones being impacted by developments. Development projects impact their lives, and therefore they should, their voices should drive development processes. But like I mentioned, oftentimes they are left out of the process. So this illustration you see here is pulled from the Community Engagement Partnership. That's the work of the Coalition for Human Rights and Development. We can share more about the work of the coalition during the follow-up, but the coalition is also like hiring a coordinator for the African region who's going to be based in West Africa. And we're hoping that, with the coordinator of the coalition, civil society, and community priorities in advancing community-led development can be boosted. And yeah, we are just looking forward to that. But like I mentioned, I'll share more as we go on. So like I mentioned, this is sort of where now the error warning system comes in, where we're trying to fill in that gap that is there in development processes where communities are left out. We're trying to make sure that communities take part and their voices are heard, and their priorities are also heard in development processes. So the error warning system ensures that local communities and organizations that support them have verified information about proposed projects from major development finance institutions. And beyond that, the error warning system as well provides like clear strategies for advocacy and other support in terms of materials, as well as assisting in community organizing. So for quite a while now, the Early Warning System Initiative has been working to set up a network of a network of like partners, global coalitions, primarily among local and national society groups to reach the communities nearest to the proposed projects. So like I mentioned, we are currently monitoring 15 different development banks. So the multilateral, bilateral development banks. And in the Early Warning System Initiative, the methodology or what happens is that the development banks, they are proposing to provide financing for projects every day, and they're proposing like about 10 projects a day. And this information is publicly disclosed on the website of the bank. So the Error Warning System Initiative includes a web-based database, and our database automatically collects this information. And the Error Warning System team edits it and provides like, we edit the information to create what we call snapshots, a project snapshot containing the information. Then the information is published on the website. And then the Error Warning System team shares this information widely with international, regional, national, and local organizations. And our primary aim is to ensure that the communities closest to the project that are being impacted by the project have that information. Because like I mentioned, we believe information is key to community participation in development processes. And this information is also available in the Error Warning System database. And if your community is interested in responding to a project that they find problematic, or they want their input to be included in the project process, our team, the error warning system team, can also support the community basically in responding to that project. So a project snapshot looks more or less like this. It's a one-page summary of the information, and primarily the information is coming from the development bank, right? But also sometimes we do further analysis of the information that is there, do on some online search to look at the private actors that are involved, and we do provide the same information in the snapshot. I'm trying to minimize something here on top so I can show you another sample of a snapshot, but technical problems. So I'll just keep that for now. And to continue, like I was saying, since January 2016, our database has more than 16,000 summaries of projects. 400 organizations around the world have signed up to receive project updates, and we are publishing more than 3,000 projects per year. And these are some of the highlights as well of the Error Warning System initiative. Each year we are supporting about 10 community-ready responses. And this involves like communities, conducting community-led research, and facilitating meetings, communications with key decision makers, so the state government, the companies, as well as the financiers. And our work is being continued to be informed by our partners. So over the time we have conducted 2 consultations to inform the next steps of International Accountability Project as organization, and also the Error Warning System initiative. And the Error Warning System team is not just staff from the International Accountability Project, but with also our partners. So we have our main partner, which is our Center for International Environmental Law, as well as, like I mentioned, we're building a network, right? So we have partners all over the globe that are forming part of the Error Warning System team to make sure that communities have information, and then as well as strategy for community development. And so now getting to the COVID-19 tracker, I have to share my other window here. It's sort of a bit slow, so you have, excuse me, but yeah, so the COVID-19 tracker, like I mentioned, it's monitoring project level financing from 15 different development banks. Each time we are increasing the number of, the institutions, I should say, just the number, but institutions that we are monitoring. And next year we'll have higher number than 15, but currently that's the number of development banks that we are monitoring through the Error Warning System initiative. And the COVID-19 tracker, like I mentioned, the data is also from the Error Warning System initiative. And like I mentioned, this is an interactive map that you can look at, filter by different filters like region, or you can filter by country to look at financing going to a specific country. You can filter by the banks themselves. You can also filter by the sector where the financing is going. But for first users of the interactive map, which of course we'll share how you can access it, you can click on the instructions for interacting with the map, and you can look at how you can interact with this tracker. So if we are to look, for example, say, let's look at financing that the African Development Bank have disclosed on their website in regards to financing going to COVID-19 relief for African Development Bank. We see that they have disclosed a number of 48 projects with an amount of more than 1.89 billion. And one more interesting thing is that if you look at the projects themselves, for example, if you click at this project going to Egypt, when you click the project, it will take you to the area warning system database where you can look at the detail of the project itself and its financing in detail. If you would like to research, you can click here and it resets everything. You can start filtering again. So I can't really share comprehensively on this interactive map, but what I can advise is like just go visit it and just interact with it. Filter, look at projects depending on your interests. You can look at whether projects, how much projects are going to public financing or private financing. So for this, like we see that most of the projects are going to public financing. So that's one. Governments and government institutions. You can look at the sector. Much of it is healthy, but quite a good number is also to medium, small, micro, small, and medium enterprises. So part of it, a good number as well, is going to banking and financing, which is like the state-owned banks, as well as the banks themselves, as well as microfinance institutions. And yeah, that's quite it. Otherwise, there is a lot you can do with this map. You can, like I mentioned, filter by region, so you can look at financing that has gone to the sub-Saharan region. You can filter, like I mentioned, by bank, as well as one way of unfiltering is to just click on the filter itself, which takes you back. But yeah, please visit it. You can look at it and you can interact with it to see what kind of financing the different banks have been doing in terms of COVID-19 relief. So these are just some of the highlights that I was just mentioning. To say currently we have 891 projects. It tracks project level commitment, and we are also sharing continuously this information with our partners. Just because it's on the database, it's online, it doesn't mean it stops there, because our goal is to make sure that this information reaches the communities closest to where these projects are being implemented, and our outreach efforts are continuing. As well as currently in the sub-Saharan African region, we have 161 known projects, and 78% of those are going to public sector and 22% to the private sector. As well as for the Middle East and Northern African region, we have 51 known projects globally, totaling 66 billion. 61 of those are to public sector and 39 to the private sector. So this is the link to visit the COVID-19 tracker. One thing I should also mention is that for next year, we are planning to do an analysis and a tracker of non-COVID-19 projects. So we believe this is very crucial because, as development banks have been providing financing to COVID-19 projects. Some of it has gone to non-COVID, and as well as, which I can say is a problem, like for most of these COVID-19 projects, there's almost no community consultation that is done, which is a problem, more especially for projects that were raised, sort of for financing that was happening at the very beginning of the pandemic, which is earlier this year, where projects were being fast-tracked, project information disclosed, not abiding to the minimum of disclosure, basically, I can say, in terms of financing. Maybe projects just disclosed within a week, the bank decides on to finance that on that project. So no community consultation was being done, and environmental and social due diligence has also been done, or poor, I can say. And for civil society as well, we have also been facing challenges like government restrictions that have made it impossible for civil society organizations to conduct outreach activities with communities that are working with or supporting, and as well as like community organizing and gathering, basically restricted, as well as the independent accountability mechanisms of the banks unable to provide remedy for communities because sometimes they need to conduct investigations or maybe mediation processes. And so we see that even for some problematic projects that communities have been voicing their concerns, have been ongoing with communities are no longer able to do that. And sometimes even banks are providing financing to corrupt governments. This is not unheard of. Maybe some of us have, even I can give an example of, we have seen in the news of what is happening, or has been happening actually in Zimbabwe, where a journalist has been repeatedly arrested for voicing against corruption. And so our main recommendation is that consultation needs to be done and to continue being done even after financing has been done, to make sure that civil society and community voices are included in development processes, as well as more especially I can say for the affected communities themselves to be able to voice their concerns and their inputs to be included in the development processes. So that is that on the COVID-19 tracker. Like I mentioned, we have limited time, but I'll share more details about it after our session today. But before I wrap up, I would just like to mention a little bit about our access to information work, which it's a topic that Ari is discussing, but this is now just like IPs, access to information work that we are currently doing. So we are analyzing African Development Bank's projects that they were disclosed in 2019. And the criteria that is used is one that would advance communities' right to information. And so, like I mentioned, this is ongoing, but some of the preliminary findings that we have indicates very poor, community access to information. And one of the major fundamental challenges that that is happening effectiveness of the African Development Bank's accountability system as a whole is the lack of awareness of the independent review mechanism for project affected communities. And so this information, this analysis, we are hoping to input into the review that is also ongoing with the IRM. And if I can just mention one specific, finding from the our analysis is that out of a data set of 178 approved African Development projects in 2019, only 7 of those mentioned the RM, and out of the 7, only 3 provided information on the mechanism itself, and 2 highlighted the client's responsibility to inform communities on the register. So My partners will be attesting more, talking more about those, but I just wanted to share some of that work. And one of the, the main recommendation that we're making is that, clients should be required to inform project-affected communities of the existence of the RM and its procedures from the very beginning of the project cycle, including in local languages and formats that are more available to marginalized and vulnerable communities. So that is the end of what I had prepared. Yeah, as my time a little bit, but if there are any questions, please drop them down in the chat box and we will go through them together. Like I mentioned, we are spending the first hour discussing, the 3 topics that we have prepared for us, and then the last 30 minutes to go through the questions that we have in the comments. So in the meantime, I'll pass it over to my colleague Ari to talk about access to information for communities in detail. And then Shireen will also talk about citizen engagement, and then afterwards we can go through the questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Ari, over to you.
Thank you, Elias, for the wonderful presentation. Sorry. So my presentation would be in French. As the PowerPoint I have made is in English. Merci beaucoup, Elias, pour la brillante présentation. Et la conclusion que Elias a fait sur l'accès à l'information, les difficultés d'accès à l'information sur le rapport. Donc, conçu
in the report.
Un bon prétexte, une bonne transition. Je vais aborder la question de l'accès à l'information, du droit à l'information et l'accès à l'information et le droit des communautés affectées à l'information sur cinq chapitres. En introduction.
Juste change de cabine, s'il te plaît.
Ça marche pas? Donc, j'ai fait une introduction, brève introduction. Je vais parler de la politique d'accès à l'information dans la base. En 3, on peut parler de l'importance de l'information pour les communautés affectées. Quelles sont les difficultés, les défis de l'accès à l'information? Enfin, quelques conclusions, quelques recommandations à la fin de ma présentation. Donc, en dehors du fait que l'information confère un statut de pouvoir, et de décision pour celui qui la possède. De notre point de vue, l'information est importante pour la société civile et les communautés, ne serait-ce que pour participer au développement et à la prise de décision et de tenir responsables les pouvoirs publics ou le secteur privé selon. L'accès à l'information est un droit humain entier. Il relève donc de la Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme en son article 19. Donc, chacun a le droit de rechercher, d'accéder, d'obtenir et de produire même de l'information publique ou privée en tout temps. C'est-à-dire l'information, le partage de l'information, donc l'accès à l'information est géré à la Banque africaine de développement à travers l'ambitieux politique de diffusion et d'accès à l'information de 2012. Je rappelle que cette politique a été l'une des premières occasions où véritablement la Banque africaine de développement s'est ouverte aux organisations de la société civile pour des séries de consultations. Ça n'a pas été facile, je me rappelle. En 2010, on a été obligé de solliciter une rencontre avec l'ancien président Kabelika pendant les assemblées annuelles de la Banque mondiale à Washington, pour exiger une série de consultations de 45 jours, comme ça se fait dans toutes les autres banques de développement. Heureusement qu'il avait été sensible à cet appel de la société civile, et nous avons eu droit à 2 séries de consultations de 45 jours, ce qui nous a permis de fournir des recommandations pertinentes qui ont été intégrées. Cela dit, qu'est-ce que cette politique, qu'est-ce que ça signifie pour les communautés affectées par des projets de développement? Avant d'en venir, permettez-moi de présenter quelques principes de cette nouvelle politique de 2012. Avant cette politique, la Banque africaine de développement disposait d'un principe de censure. Excusez-moi du mot, c'est trop fort peut-être. Mais il y avait une liste négative. On vous disait, bon, vous pouvez accéder à toutes les informations sauf cette liste-là. Donc il y a une liste, n'essayez même pas d'accéder. Le chemin a été long. Le principe de cette nouvelle politique, c'est le maximum de diffusion. On est allé d'un principe de négation à un principe d'ouverture, ce qui est extrêmement important et c'est ambitieux. Assurer une diffusion proactive. Limiter les exceptions. Améliorer l'accès à l'information du public, en particulier des communautés et de la société civile. Mais ce qui est encore plus important, cette politique dispose d'un droit d'appel. Cela veut dire, en tant que société civile ou communauté, si vous avez des difficultés ou si on vous renie le droit d'accéder à un quelconque document à la base, vous avez le droit de faire appel à travers ce lien que j'ai mis en dessous de la présente. La Banque africaine n'est pas une porte fermée ni à la société ni aux communautés en vertu de cette politique de 2012 de diffusion et d'accès à l'information. L'importance donc de l'information aux communautés affectées. Je vais sérier cette partie en 6 parties, en 7 éléments. La phase de préparation des projets, c'est une phase extrêmement importante qui est organisée pourtant par la BAT à travers le document de stratégie pays, où les pays membres élaborent ou bien planifient ces projets les 5 années à venir. Il doit être fait sur une base participative en limitant les organisations sociales. Ça, c'est le principe. Mais en réalité, cette phase, aussi importante qu'elle soit pour l'accès à l'information des communautés affectées, souffre de limites. Peu d'organisations de la société civile, encore moins des communautés qui devaient habiter des projets de la Banque africaine, sont informées ou consultées effectivement et participent à l'élaboration de ce document de politique. Donc, une des recommandations que je vais faire, c'est d'appeler le département de la société civile à engager le dialogue avec les deux pays pour permettre aux organisations civiles et aux communautés susceptibles d'habiter des projets à risque d'être informés, d'être consultés et de participer à ce cycle de préparation. C'est extrêmement important. Ça évite de perdre du temps, des ressources et de charrier des impacts négatifs sur des communautés de l'environnement, comme c'est le cas. La phase d'approbation des projets, c'est une phase qui, la plupart du temps, intéresse les gouvernements, qui se glorifient que la BAD a financé un projet de 200 millions d'euros au Sénégal, au Maroc, etc. Mais l'information est toujours disponible sur le site web de la BAD. Donc, l'information, les montants, la synthèse du projet, on peut avoir toute l'information. Mais cette phase est également importante. La phase de mise en œuvre. Une phase où je vais choisir la phase d'étude de réalisation de l'étude d'impact environnemental et social. Elle est extrêmement importante, où la communauté doit bénéficier de l'information pertinente, doit être consultée, et doit participer à l'élaboration de cette étude pour éviter les nuisances ou améliorer les nuisances. La plupart du temps, ces études sont souvent biaisées et consultent mal les communautés hautes. Ce qui fait que si vous consultez la base de données du mécanisme indépendant, la majeure partie des plaintes sont le fait de mauvaises réinstallations, de mauvaise évaluation environnementale et sociale. Toujours dans la phase d'implémentation, de mise en œuvre, il y a la recherche de licence sociale pour l'entreprise qui va mettre en œuvre ces projets. Là également, les communautés ont droit à l'information, à la participation, et l'entreprise ou bien la BAC doit développer un plan d'engagement avec la communauté. Ils doivent mettre à la disposition de cette communauté l'existence du mécanisme de règlement de grief. Ils doivent mettre à la disposition du projet de façon très simple également les bénéfices et les impacts potentiels. Ils doivent mettre à la disposition de la communauté également tout ce qui est relatif aux aspects socio-environnementaux. Là également, c'est un appel également à la base pour améliorer la prise en compte des sauvegardes environnementales et sociales. Enfin, la clôture des projets également, qui devrait être également une phase où la communauté haute et bénéficiaire même doit avoir de l'information et participer à l'évaluation et à l'apprentissage. Si c'est des projets qui ont à fort bénéfice, impact, que la BAD puisse s'en inspirer, pour reprendre ça, étendre ça dans des zones, dans d'autres zones, dans d'autres pays membres. Si c'est des projets qui ont souffert de beaucoup d'impact négatif également, que ce soit un apprentissage pour la banque également de corriger une prochaine fois. Je donne l'exemple de Sendou, un projet de centrale à charbon de 125 MW que la BAD a eu à faire, à construire au Sénégal en 2009, plus de 10 ans. L'absence d'informations pertinentes à la communauté et au public de façon générale a conduit à une perte de 11 années pour 200 millions d'euros. L'infrastructure est construite à côté de milliers de femmes qui travaillent. Vous voyez, les femmes qui font du séchage du poisson. L'étude d'impact n'a pas été bien faite. Même pour avoir l'étude d'impact environnemental et social, le bureau de Dakar était fermé pour mon organisation. L'unité de projet ne voulait pas nous fournir l'information. En ce moment, la BAD était à Tunis. Il a fallu interagir avec Tunis avec des questions. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire avec l'information? Vous êtes qui, etc. Finalement, on nous a donné l'information et on a alerté à temps la BAD. Il a fallu maintenant 10 ans pour la Banque africaine de développement de se rendre compte qu'il n'avait pas l'information sur ces 1000 femmes qui travaillent, qui sèchent du poisson, qui vendent un peu partout en Afrique de l'Ouest, qui gagnent de l'argent et qui, avec cet argent, nourrissent leur famille, payent l'éducation, etc., etc. Et même les impacts environnementaux et sociaux ont été sous-estimés, bien que pour régler un problème. C'est fondamental, l'accès à l'électricité en une période de coupure intensive en 2009. Mais voilà, le résultat est là. C'est une catastrophe. Et le principal problème était la gestion de l'information, le partage de l'information. En parlant de communautés affectées, ce processus, lorsqu'on a saisi le mécanisme, un an après la mise en œuvre, en 2000, 2 ans après, même pour avoir accès au rapport d'évaluation des consultants indépendants des banques ou bien des mécanismes, il faut poireauter, il faut taper à toutes les portes pour connaître le statut de la plainte, pour connaître les développements. Est-ce que la communauté sera déplacée? Est-ce que les femmes seront indemnisées, etc. L'information est souvent bloquée quelque part là-bas, soit à l'unité de projet, etc. Un autre projet sur lequel je travaille, c'est le train régional. La médiation a démarré cette année, en période de COVID. Les communautés, plus de 2000 familles, en majorité des femmes, sont devenues locataires après avoir été déplacées, n'ont pas reçu d'indemnisation, ne savent pas quoi faire, alors que le projet continue d'être mis en œuvre par la BAD. Au minimum, informer ces communautés. La BAD a donné au Sénégal 88 millions d'euros en appui à la résilience au Covid-19. Cet argent a servi au Sénégal à gérer pratiquement l'amélioration du système de santé et la résilience des indicateurs macroéconomiques. Mais aucune information n'a été rendue disponible pour les communautés affectées. Celles-là qui sont depuis 4 ans avec le CNU en conciliation, le plan régional, c'est mon organisation qui, très tôt au mois de mars, au mois d'avril, a donné des vivres de soudure aux communautés et a apporté une aide en produits sanitaires et de protection. On n'a pas vu, il n'y a eu pas d'information pour cet appui de la Banque africaine de développement. Hein. Et là, je viens au challenge, au niveau pays. Le ministre des Finances est le principal répondant interlocuteur de la BAD. Mais allez au ministre des Finances pour demander des informations. Ils ne sont pas ils ne sont pas vos indicateurs. Vous allez aux unités de gestion des projets. Nous avons une base de données de 2014 personnes affectées par le train express régional, des indemnisations, une mauvaise réinstallation, des mauvais barèmes de paiement, etc. etc. Mais l'APEX, l'unité de projet, nous a opposé un niet pour l'accès à la base de données. Nous présentons nos données au médiateur, le médiateur il prend le document, il retourne à l'APEX, l'APEX dit non, cette base de données est incomplète, on ne peut pas travailler avec cette base. Et ils ne veulent pas fournir. Et les mécanismes indépendants de la BAD et de la AfDB n'ont pas de capacité, n'ont pas de pouvoir de pression sur l'unité de gestion pour fournir un éclairage ou bien pour faire une confrontation entre notre base de données de personnes affectées par le plan régional et la base de données avec laquelle l'APIX, l'unité de gestion, a véritablement à gérer les impenses. Les sites de projet, lorsque les communautés commencent à résister, les sites de projet deviennent des bunkers. C'est la police qui monte sur les sites de projet. Comment voulez-vous que les communautés qui luttent pour leur droit puissent avoir accès à des informations sur le site de projet? Il y a un mois, une femme de Sendou qui protestait contre le projet, le projet de zone économique spéciale à côté de Sendou, a été menacée par la police. Elle s'est interposée devant les agents du projet qui ont dénoncé à la police et le préfet a dit au commandant de brigade, il faut aller chercher la femme là. Il faut revenir au gouvernement. Quand elle est partie, on leur dit non, on peut régler votre problème, mais ne parlez pas aux ONG. Ne parlez pas aux ONG. Vous allez à la BAD également, c'est un problème également, soit de mauvaise compréhension des textes ou de mauvaise volonté, je ne peux pas. Donc, il nous arrive, je reçois beaucoup de plaintes de collègues de Rabat au Cap, pour dire bon, on a des problèmes pour discuter, pour avoir des informations avec le bureau de Rabat. Souvent, j'interagis avec les études ou bien le projet. Tu envoies un mail à un agent de la BAD, souvent, il peut faire 4 mois, ou bien 4 appels pour te répondre. À chaque fois, remind. C'est une course de fond avec la BAD, souvent pour avoir l'information. Donc voilà, c'est une communauté qui a eu la chance, pour la première fois en 10 ans, de rencontrer, d'être reçue à la Banque africaine au bureau pays pour déposer un mémorandum après 10 ans. Donc pour notre perspective, sachez que les communautés, souvent, ne connaissent pas la base de politique et d'opération. Elles ont peu de capacités et peu de connaissances pour engager, pour avoir l'information. C'est d'où le rôle important de la société civile pour appuyer les communautés à avoir l'information indispensable, à discuter avec les personnes concernées à la PAC pour se faire entendre et pour peut-être chercher des solutions à leur problème. Donc, en conclusion, je fais juste des recommandations pour nous, les organisations civiles, et enfin pour la BAT. Nous devons soutenir donc, conseiller les communautés pour avoir accès à l'information et s'engager avec la BAT dans le cadre de l'implémentation de la mise en œuvre des projets. Donc, faisons en sorte que la BAT connaisse notre organisation. La BAT, le département de société civile, a une base de données des organisations civiles sur le continent. D'ailleurs, faites-nous connaître, faites-vous renseigner dans cette base de données. Je crois qu'ils m'écoutent, ils pourront vous aider. Deuxième point, restez informés. Faites tout pour être informés sur les politiques et les projets de la BAT si vous voulez travailler sur la BAT. Je ne dis pas avec la BAT. Travailler avec la BAT, c'est autre chose. Mais si vous voulez travailler sur la BAT, faites tout pour connaître les politiques, sauvegarde environnementale et sociale, accès à l'information, etc. Avant de vous engager. C'est important. Troisièmement, rendez-vous très souvent sur le site de la BAT pour avoir l'information, même si l'information, la plupart du temps, est en anglais, ou bien des synthèses, des bribes d'informations, mais c'est des informations, rendez-vous. Le système que mon ami Elias a présenté est une base d'informations extrêmement importante également. Rendez-vous sur ça. Mais de mon point de vue, la politique, elle est ambitieuse, elle est pas mal, elle est bonne. L'accès à l'information, nous avons la BAT à l'une des meilleures politiques d'accès à l'information. Mais le problème, c'est la mise en œuvre. Il reste des problèmes. Et pour moi, c'est juste une question de confiance entre les organisations civiles, les communautés, les gouvernements, etc., particulièrement pour la BAT. Sans la confiance, on ne peut pas travailler ensemble pour partager les informations pertinentes. Parce que ce que nous unit, au-delà de nos différences, nous ne sommes pas du même côté, mais au-delà de ces différences d'approche et de stratégie, nous avons la même ambition, c'est l'Afrique, c'est les communautés. Donc, ensemble, travaillons ensemble à construire collectivement cette lutte qui mène à cette confiance. Pour terminer, je vais un peu paraphraser le président Adesina hier, qui a fait un beau discours sur la société civile, sur l'engagement de la société civile, qui disait il faut que la BAT quitte les discours pour aller à l'action. Pour moi, nous devons quitter les politiques. La politique, elle est bonne, elle est pas mal. Mais nous devons quitter les politiques aux bonnes pratiques. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Ari, for a great presentation and sharing challenges. Sorry, I was getting feedback. Yeah, I was saying thank you so much, Ari, for the great presentation and sharing challenges that we as civil society as well as communities that are being impacted by development are facing. I'm sure our participants here, like you, have as well your own evidences or issues that you're facing in terms of accessing information or basically community participation in project processes. And please, if you can, drop that here, as well as, like I mentioned, our organizers, the AfDB Civil Society, are keeping a list of participants. So if we will not be able to share that here today, we can keep in touch and keep recording that as evidence that we can continue to provide to African Development Bank as well as other development banks to basically improve on their policies and practices when it comes to prioritizing communities in development processes. Thank you so much again, Ali. At this time, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Shireen, to talk about citizen engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you, Ali, for this informative presentation. It was very important what you mentioned, especially about affected people. And well, we are completing each other, Elias, Ali, and myself. Um, I'm speaking now about citizen engagement, and I know that the citizen engagement department at the African Development Bank is very young. That's why we are here together to help in improving the policy, improving the action and the implementation, because I believe civil society and international financial institutions need to be in an ongoing partnership and an ongoing open discussion to fulfill all the goals that seeks sustaining development. Allow me here to refer to President Atsina when he spoke about the High Five Africa, Light Up Empower Africa, Feed Africa, Industrialize Africa, Integrate Africa, improve the quality of life for the people of Africa. And I'm supporting his approach, but this approach never could be effective and applied on the ground without real citizen engagement. And when I'm speaking about citizen engagement, I'm not only speaking about and I'm adopting here the language that was mentioned and the citizen engagement framework of the African Development. Highly selective civil society, and I actually didn't understand this specific statement. I need indigenous people to be consulted, women, people with disabilities, vulnerable, local communities in marginalized areas, etc. That is citizen engagement. People who are affected with the projects and policies that implemented by our governments funded by the African Development Bank. The bank has made efforts during the COVID crisis to improve its policies and accountability mechanism, the IRM, but we have noticed that there are still much effort need to be done in order to achieve the divine objective. African Development Bank, among all the IFIs, has this rare action, which is a committee for civil society. And in this committee, there are different representatives of civil society. However, we notice a lack of effective citizen engagement. And from what we experiences, even this committee and how it is operate is really vague for myself as a civil society, for example, and we are representing a coalition in a whole region. As we all know, the COVID crisis relieved that there is a very big gap and a lack of performance, especially I'm speaking about the government, especially when it comes to transparency and governance, and to sure that transparency and governance are really applied on the ground. You need to listen to people. Because citizen engagement is a very effective instrument that guarantee sustainable development on micro and macro level, not only in the level of our human rights as local communities and civil society, but also at the level of the bank investment. And if we are speaking about sustaining debt, and debt as a burden on our shoulders that us and our children will pay back, effective citizen engagement need to be effective, of course. As my colleagues mentioned before, that during the COVID response and the countries that was uh, benefited from this, the African Development Bank rapid instrument, um, when we reviewed the agreements, we didn't find any sense of citizen engagement. Yes, in some of them, like in Morocco, for example, citizen engagement, a consultation was mentioned, but we didn't find who were consulted where, and who were responsible about this consultation. Nothing at all. And that goes back to yani brought us back to access to information. Where is this information? How can we participate? How can we evaluate and be partners and part of this projects that is affecting our lives and all the local communities that in the country of operation. um, for example, as Elias mentioned before, um, those responses was sometimes critics, have critics from certain activists or journalists on the ground, but uh, and unfortunately the bank didn't pay attention of the crackdown that is happening on the civil society or the freedom of expression in certain countries of operation. Uh, People, when they were criticizing the funds, the money, the ways of spending, etc., were facing reprisal and retaliation, like what is happening in Zimbabwe, um, when a journalist were thrown in jail and another go into hiding following threats, and the tracks targeting close relatives. Uh, Both they were highlighting corruption around COVID-19 purchase, and the situation in Egypt is a disaster. It's not يعني it's not like luckiest than the Zimbabwe. Um, Doctors will face detentions. Journalists also, when they spoke about the COVID-19 purchase, etc. Um, I here want also to go with you through the framework, in framework for enhancing engagement with civil society. You can find many gaps in language, vague language and terminology that maybe we can, if we refer and we speak about them now, maybe that can open a discussion inside the bank to review them more. um, يعني if we are going step by step, like gaining and providing information, um, it's very well formally, it's very well elaborated, but still lack of performance on the ground. um, Speaking all the time about the website that is designed to be accessible by CSOs and other stakeholders, but yet we cannot see the website. Uh, um, and Still, if we are going through the website of the African Development Bank, a lot of documents are missing. And I want to add also to this that language is very important if we are speaking about citizen engagement and access to information. we need the documents that related to our countries. We need our language to be adopted. I can see sometimes English and I can see sometimes French, but there is also Arabic countries that local communities need to know more about what is going on and how their life were going to be affected. So please disclose the information in their language, in Arabic. Also, going through CSO participation in policy making. Again, very good writing, formalization. But I can see here that the country, the borrowers, the RMCs, are the only responders to engage civil society. And again, we spoke earlier about the context that we are living in our countries. The bank need to be involved in reaching out the civil society, not only the RMCs. Uh, I can speak about a whole list of gongos, a whole list of people who are acting that they are civil society and they are not. Again, safe space for civil society to be engaged. I believe that the bank need to make a more effort in reaching out for civil society on country levels, not only depend on what the RMCs provide, yani what the RMCs present. Um, the same context here, when the documents say, in particular, the bank will assess RMCs on such matters as freedom of expression, rule of law, and participation in policy formulation and decision making. Unfortunately, the project consultation again do not include real citizen civil society and communities. For again, and insist, local communities, indigenous people with disability need to be there and appear. And I can see that when I read the document here, the word may is all around the document, that that civil society may be consulted, the civil society may be spoke to. This may need to be out of this document, because citizen engagement has to be a condition and a mandate if we are speaking about an effective citizen engagement. So that, and it need to be a powerful mandate at the African Development Bank citizen engagement policy and framework. Again, if we are speaking about the independent development evaluation portal, and I know it is related, of course, to African development. It's a very good initiative, but yet still we cannot see more updated information. And the most important thing that I want to emphasize in is the review of the IRMs, which is a very good initiative, and I endorsed it a lot. But yet, the mention of the IRM in every and each consultation and engagement with the civil society or local community need to be there. Uh, uh, what I experienced from the African Developing Bank is that they are not visible in our country. People do not know that this certain project, is funded by the African Development Bank. And if we are measuring on this, the IRMs, the IRM are not visible to at all, even during the consultations. When I was reviewing the documents of different countries and agreement African Development Bank website. Can you hear me good? Okay. And I can find that the grievance mechanism was mentioned once in the Moroccan document for the COVID response, but yet still need more to done. That need to be more visible. We all recall what happened in 2011, the movements, the uprising of the people in the region, because they need to have just a fair life. And comparing this to the investments that you are doing, the African development are doing on our countries, this investments, you cannot gain your money back when people are not satisfied, because those money that you are investing in our countries without consulting with the beneficiaries, you call them the African Development Bank or the IFIs in general call them the beneficiaries, we call them right holders. They need to feel and to know and to be more engaged and have a voice in their destiny. And that cannot happen without an effective citizen engagement. So it is, everything is related to each other. Good investments related to good to citizenship, citizen engagement. Sustaining development related to effective citizen engagement. And let me go back to the IRMs because it's a very important issue, and mention that uh, a recommendation for the African Development Bank from the civil society were sent to the board of directors, and I want just to quote a small quote from this letter that we sent, among other civil society around in Africa and around the world, to the board of the directors about the IRMs, because the IRMs is one of the only avenues available for African communities to raise their voices about the impact of the African Development Bank uh, project. When here we are speaking about consultation on management action, the key outcome of the complaints process should be remedial actions and that address communities' grievance and restores livelihoods. One key flaw of the current complaints process, as highlighted by the report that you released on that issue, is that complainants are not given an opportunity to comment on the actions plans developed by the management to address the mechanisms findings of non-complaints. Management must be required to engage meaningfully with complainants to find mutually agreeable ways to address the IRM's finding. Consulting with the complainants on the action plan is essential to ensuring that the measure will be satisfactorily address their grievance and redress harms they have suffered. And again, when we are speaking here about the recommendations, I want to say that uh, um, more work needs to be done on country level. I remember at the end of 2018, I contacted the bank because we were, as the Arab Watch Coalition, we were organizing a workshop for the Moroccan civil society. And actually, the headquarter was very responsive, and I want a representative from their side to represent the portfolio of the African Development Bank. And I believe it was an opportunity to be called by the bank. In this workshop, we had World Bank, African Development Bank, supposed to EBRD, IMF, etc. And as I said, the headquarter was very responsive, but they couldn't reach the country office, which from my point of view was very sad. The headquarter is very enthusiastic to this workshop, and they cannot reach the country office. How about me as a local community? And I think that I spoke very يعني long. Thank you. And it's I want to say that the guarantee of sustaining development is citizen engagement, to know more about what is going on the real ground, to know more, to enhance transparency and governance and sustain development. Citizen engagement is the key. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for that heartfelt presentation. I really felt that. And yeah, I mean, these are the challenges that we continue to face. I can comment on one of them you mentioned, like on language. We find that for most of these affected communities, they don't speak English, right? And so information needs to be translated in their local languages. I see like the African Development Bank on their website, they take efforts to translate some of the information into other languages, but the only languages I've seen there is French. Once or twice I've seen information provided in Arabic, but it's just French. And as I was mentioning, we are doing an analysis of African Development Bank's projects disclosed in 2019. Let me share my video. See, my video wasn't shared. Yeah, we are doing an analysis of African Development Bank's projects disclosed in 2019. And much of that information is in English, and some of it is disclosed, is translated into French, and that's it. It's just French. There was a couple projects in Kenya that I saw were also translated in French, and we know that Kenya is a Swahili-speaking country, so you get to ask yourself, like, why French? You know, I'm not saying French is not important, but it will make sense for languages. I mean, for information to be translated in languages that is spoken in that specific country or community. And so these are efforts that we will continue to fight, and to make sure that the bank does better. And we have civil society and also civil society group at the African Development Bank, we need to work together to make sure that we place communities at the center of development priorities. We call them the beneficiaries, right? Like Sharon mentioned, they are called beneficiaries, and yet we leave them out of the development processes. And so we need to make sure that we place them at the center of development process. And with that comment, I think I can also just answer one of the questions that was placed in the chat box. Please continue to place your comments and questions in there. The question says, how do you make sure that IFIs consult with CSOs coalition prior to financing projects? This is like, I can speak from the perspective of the work that the International Accountability Project is doing, which we are trying to make sure that community voices and priorities inform, financing that is happening, development that is happening. And so at the International Accountability Project, we are continuously collecting information from the community, evidences that will inform, our advocacy work, and therefore also inform, policies of the banks. And it has to begin with if banks will consult with communities and CSOs, it has to be within their policies. And so for us at International Accountability Project, we are continuously collecting information from communities, their voices, through our outreach efforts, the community-led research processes, and so on, to inform our advocacy work, that will also inform the policies of the banks to make sure that, communities and CSOs are consulted prior to financing of projects. Again, like I mentioned, please continue to leave your comments and questions in the chat box. But maybe Shireen or Ari, you would like to also add a little bit about that, maybe about how, your efforts are, trying to make sure that, CSOs are being consulted by banks prior to financing of development projects.
Can I jump here?
Yes, please, Sharon.
I believe through our work, through what you are doing, Elias, through what is Ali is doing, and we are all partners, among the among Africa and internationally, and we are collaborating together to work for the benefit of the local communities that we are operating in. From our side as Arab Watch Coalition, we are all the time trying to work with the civil society in its broader way. I mean, not only NGOs, not only organizations, but also non-organized communities, and we work on organizing them to and empower them with the tool of monitoring. Monitoring is important for the sake of development. If that works on harmony, I believe a lot of problems and issues that is affecting our life and killing our earth and in nature will be gone. And from our side, we are doing mobilization around the region, work with civil society to introduce the work of the banks to them. And I believe part of that need to be the bank's work, not only us. So we are doing more reach out to different local communities around the region, make workshops to tell them what is those IFIs, what is the African Development Bank projects here, what is the portfolio, how can you be engaged, what is the entry points, and how you can raise your voice and complain if you are affected. So this is part of what we are doing. We are a lot of the time do translations for local communities to understand what is going on, what is affecting their life, etc. Networking with other partners around Africa and around the world, to know how to deal with things, because our experiences are different. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm gonna pass it over to one of our organizers here from the civil society, Edward. But maybe before I do, Ari, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, thank you, Elias. Coming back, this is important question: how to ensure IFI people are informed about what IFI are doing on the ground. I think most IFI, including the African Development Bank, has policy related to disclosure and information, citizen engagement, etc. Especially from the AfDB. I think beyond, training its own staff on disclosure and information access policy of the bank, I think it's important for the senior management and the board to ensure that bank staff, bank management has a proactive and holistic understanding of what civil society engagement means for the bank. They should be open to disclose relevant information. They should be open to receive to society and communities to their office to talk about the concern related to bank operation. I think the bank has overall good policies, but from what I mentioned, from the government and the AfDB management perspective, I think the only problem is about trust. I'm talking to you. Please don't be afraid to engage with us. We are complementary. We are on the ground working with communities. We are on the top, formulating and designing operation for a better Africa. Please, let's work together with trust and confidence. It's only about trust. Please disclose the information at your stage. Use the civil society, gender and women department, database of civil society, to inform and engage at any stage with civil society at country level. The bank have a civil society database. We are working also as a society with a network at global level. I'm a member of a global network called Coalition for Human Rights and Development. I'm a member of the Coalition of the African Society on the AfDB. I'm a member of African Society on Corporate Accountability Extra. We have network the bank management can use before. And please invite them at country level when it's come to consult or inform society. It's basic things, but without trust, we cannot work together better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ari. Edward, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Elias. It's a pleasure being part of this CSO-led session. As I said at the very beginning, as a representative of the bank, it's your session. My role really is to listen on, but I think the exchanges have been very, very interesting to listen to. They capture, in effect, as I mentioned earlier, the high expectations of civil society from an institution that belongs to Africa. Let me begin by, where Ali ended, by insisting that civil society engagement is about engaging with civil society. That's why the division was created. We are, as I said again, when I made my introductory remarks before we started, the civil society division is barely 2 years old. It was created, but of course, the bank needed some time to put this stuff. And for now, I mean, we are still very, very few in the division. So we are like a baby that is still at the creeping stage, but I think we are getting to start walking, and I'm sure when we get up, we shall be running, not walking really. Because we are dealing with civil society, we know the expectations of civil society. We see the different messages that come in, the requests, what civil society thinks and which direction it thinks the bank should take when it comes to engaging with civil society that represents the voices of the community. I also take note of the fact that, well, I want you to take note of the fact that even within the institution, we have to convince even some colleagues to see the relevance of civil society engagement. That's why I mentioned, I said we will build capacity internally also. That is very critical, because it is not because there is a civil society division that everybody sees the need for engaging civil society. Some still think that civil society is irrelevant. In fact, to some, they are troublemakers. These are people who create problems, and we don't. Our role is to ensure that we understand. We have a common understanding of the role of engaging and the importance and the value addition that engagement with civil society brings. It's about accountability. That's what we are discussing in this session. But it's also about ownership of bank-funded projects. It's about transparency in the way bank projects are designed and implemented. And of course, it's about ensuring that the needs of the beneficiaries, and Sharon rightly said that these are in fact right holders. It is to ensure that the right holders have a claim to their rights. So, which is why there is a civil society division in the bank. And what we have been doing for the past few months is listening to civil society, listening to our colleagues in the bank, listening to other stakeholders. And on the basis of that listening, Lumiere in his presentation that outlined the things that the bank have been doing, the tools that we are developing to ensure mainstreaming of civil society engagement in bank projects. They are all still being developed. How do you ensure that civil society is part of the process from conception through implementation to appraisal, completion? How do you ensure that that is happening? How do you ensure that when you are preparing a country strategy paper or a regional integration strategy paper, civil society is part of the process? Those tools are still being developed. And personally, I'm working on capacity building, which the president mentioned and which many of you have mentioned in the chat. How do we ensure that the bank's capacity to engage with civil society is strengthened, and the capacity of civil society to engage with the bank is taken up to a certain level and standard? And I did mention the fact that we undertook a needs assessment. Some of you received the questionnaire. We were asking questions which are, somehow reflected in all what you have been saying. What do we need? Where do we need? On what do we need to build capacity, etc. And they all came out, which we are now currently analyzing the data and preparing the report. And it is evident that we will need to strengthen capacity at policy level, okay? When we are developing different sector strategies, how do we ensure that the strategy for youth employment, the strategy for environmental safeguards, the strategy for good governance, how do we ensure that civil society is not that, and I come back to sharing again, that we don't say civil society may be consulted, that we say civil society will play this role in the implementation of the strategy. That is part of the capacity building process at policy level, so that when we are conceiving strategies, we know the role civil society will play and how colleagues at the operational level will ensure this in terms of building their capacity. Access to information, you belabor that a lot, and thank you so much. Just like with projects, access to information, we are working with our colleagues of the Access to Information team to see how to build capacity on access to information, because some may not even, and this we get requests from civil society saying, please, can I have a copy of the country strategy paper for my country? But it is available online. They are not aware that if you go online and ask for the country strategy paper for Senegal, for Cameroon, you will have it online, but they are not aware. So it is important to inform and strengthen their capacity and provide them with the right information so that they understand which information they can have access to, where they can find it, and if not, whom they can contact in case they need information that they don't have. So like with the other tools, we are also working on that. For us, you mentioned, Ali came back on this a few times, you mentioned the independent review mechanism, which in effect exists because we have created problems upstream. So if we engage civil society in our policies, projects, and operations and projects, there may not be any need for the IRM because civil society, the concerns and issues that may have led to complaints have been addressed upstream. So downstream, we have mitigated the risk of complaints. So for us, civil society engagement we are taking engagement with civil society very, very seriously in terms of the tools that we are developing, in terms of which issues, the needs and the gaps that need to be addressed. My appeal is only that we are working on everything that you have said. I mean, there is nothing you have said which is out of place. We are working on everything you have said. And please understand that we would eventually get there. Our objective is to have you as partners in the development of the continent, that is civil society. We cannot move directly to communities. We can only do so through their representatives that are civil society organizations, community-based organizations. And thank you so much for the point concerning language. Yes, if we are building the capacity of civil society, let's say to get civil society's voice included in the preparation of the country strategy paper, we will definitely need civil society to understand what it all entails and put it in the language that will help them understand. I mean, if we are involving civil society, community-based organizations into a project, definitely you are strengthening their capacity in the language they understand. But of course, the two official languages of the bank, French and English, but that doesn't mean that if we are working in, say, Tanzania, it will not mainly be in Swahili, which is an official language of that country, or in Angola or Mozambique, it will not be in Portuguese, which are the official languages of the country. But of course, as we go right down the pyramid, ensure that it is the language. If you are building capacity, you use the language that the people understand. I definitely know that that is an issue. We all know that it is an issue, and it is a gap even that was identified in the survey, needs a survey, which I mentioned, and the report will clearly highlight this. Please also take note that the framework which Sharon mentioned was published in 2015, and really it has been like a roadmap for civil society engagement. We have evolved beyond that, and there was an evaluation of the bank civil society engagement by our independent evaluation team, and most of the issues you have raised are reflected in that report. And the recommendations are very clear. In fact, one of the key recommendations is that the bank should have a civil society engagement strategy. So we shall be working with you to design this strategy. How do we ensure that the bank is engaging? It is not the civil society division, the bank. So when, as a CSO, you move towards a country office, you will be provided with the right information, or at least there will be somebody who can do that. For now, the staff is limited, but we are working towards ensuring that in line with the bank's commitment to decentralize its operations towards the regions and member country and regional member countries, we are working to ensure that each region will have a dedicated civil society officer, all the 5 regions. And these regional officers will have focal points in country offices with whom they will work to foster civil society engagement. So please know that again, we are a young division. We inherited a number of things which were already there, but we are working towards, as the president underlined, making sure, somebody even in the chat mentioned it, that the African Development Bank should move from a process towards, from process driven towards measurable driven. I understand measurable to be results driven. It is definitely our ambition, ensure that civil society is part of the conception of the results framework, even in the country strategy paper, so that they will be in a better position to monitor whether the performance indicators outlined in the country strategy paper or in the project document are being met. Because if you ask us to evaluate, what are we evaluating? We are evaluating what was put in the results framework as the achievements to be made. So please, thank you very much. I just wanted to provide this clarification before you move towards concluding the session. Just that we have, you don't leave thinking that you are on the other side and we are on the other side. Yes, we are in the bank, but we, as a civil society division, we are there for you. Don't hesitate. Make sure you are in the database, because for your information, Sharon did say that the banks, in terms of visibility, the bank is not that visible. Civil society will help to do that. And for civil society to do that, we should know that you are out there. There is a database of civil society organizations that is being upgraded. It had existed, but now we are upgrading it. We are updating it, and we will allow civil society organizations to have access to that database so they can modify or change or update their information whenever necessary, so that you don't lose track of anything that we shall be sharing in terms of information like the one we are already sharing. We have been sending messages to civil society. For those of you who have been receiving the messages by email on how the bank does its work. So that is part of the capacity building we are talking about while working on the strategy documents, while working on the tools that will enable civil society engagement to be part and parcel of how the bank does its work. I think the president was very clear today. Take note that those are policy statements that were made, and definitely we will work, based on the recommendations that will come from this forum. We will definitely work towards meeting those expectations and the expectations of civil society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edward. We have less than 2 minutes before we finish our session. In a few seconds, maybe Shireen and Ari, you'd like to maybe reply to Edward as well as give your closing remarks.
Thank you, Elias. Quickly, just to confirm that the bank is doing much effort to engage with the society organization, Edward, you're right. And for the first time in 10 years, I saw the president of the bank spending about 2 hours in the civil society, in the forum like this. That's good things, and I'm applauding the president for his participation yesterday in the high dialogue yesterday, and I'm hoping to see the president in Ghana next year, if, of course, the pandemic, is out of, to see the president spending same time to interact with us at the Civil Society Forum. Thank you for the progress, and again, yeah, let's work together for Africa. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ali. Thank you, Elias, and very thanks to Edward. I appreciate the enthusiasm and I appreciate the approach. And I want to say that as a civil society, we are here, and we are here to endorse and help all the initiatives from the banks towards the people. As a civil society, we are not, uh, I don't want to say that we are representing people or representing our communities. We just have the access, and we want to help our communities to have the same access. And you need to listen to them, not only selective, highly selective representatives, vulnerables, poor, and I'm sorry to say that women, as يعني, the world still see us as vulnerables. I don't know why. Women, right holders need to be heard, and we are very happy to help in this. I know that you open the bank opened a conversation with international civil society, but yet still, this conversation need to go on local levels. This conversation need to be open in Kenya, in Senegal, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Morocco, in Ghana, etc. So, and again, I say, as the Arab Watch Coalition, we are very happy to help on this and help our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ari and Shelin. We are past the time. We should be wrapping up now. I don't really have much, because much has been said, and Shelin, you have captured what I wanted to conclude with pretty well. So I just want to say that there were like comments and questions in the chat box that we did not go through. We will like follow up through email with all the participants, sharing all the materials we have presented or referenced here today, more resources, and please let's keep in touch. Like Sharon has mentioned, we are working to support the people on the ground. So these conversations, we should make sure that we transfer them from this platform to the ground with the community. And so I'd just like to thank everyone again for your participation. Thanks to our organizers at the AfDB CSO group, as well as my co-panelists, Shireen and Ari, for your great enthusiasm, passion, and energy in presenting the issues we had today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.